Hello, listeners. Welcome to season 2 of the Masters Decoded podcast. I am Manish Merchant, the chief decoder. I want to thank you for the overwhelming response to season 1. Your feedback and encouragement led me to bring you season 2 of the Masters Decoded. The season will tap into how technology, artificial intelligence, and other socio-economic factors have impacted my guests' careers or passions. My next guest on today's episode is Nitisha Agarwal. Nitisha is currently the founder and director of the non-profit Smokeless Cookstove Foundation. In addition, she's also the co-founder of a social enterprise, Himalayan Rocket Stove. Love for the mountains and trekking lured her to a chance interaction with an Australian scientist, and Nitisha became a part of the Himalayan Rocket Stove team after quitting her corporate job as the head of communications with Volkswagen India in November 2016. She has some amazing stories to share, and without much further ado, let me get on with it. Before we continue, a small word from our sponsors, Anchor.fm.
If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Hi, Nitisha. Welcome to Masters Decoded podcast series. Really glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you, Anis, and I'm excited to be here. Looking forward to our chat.
Nitisha, I was really looking forward to this conversation, and the reason is not because just the interest in green and clean energy, but also one thing which really scared me recently, the UN report which came out, the World Economic Forum, where they stated that the world climate is going to get more hotter by 1.5 degrees, which is going to have some big impact to our planet Earth, and there can be more severe impacts from a weather perspective. And I believe the company which you are running right now, which is the Smokeless Cookstove Foundation, is focused around creating a more inclusive as well as a habitable energy source to basic needs at home, which is cooking. And, I just want to but before we get to know what you do, how did this idea come about? What prompted you to start what you're doing today?
Well, yes, the IPCC report is threatening, and I think people who are in this field always knew. It's just that the report has now made it to a regular newspaper, and now it seems to it has become a classroom and drawing room discussion, which is good, which is good. So coming to my journey in this field, this was not planned. This was not something that I thought that I would be doing till about 5 years ago, or in fact even not 5 years ago. 5 years ago I paused my corporate career very suddenly, without much thinking, without much planning. In fact, with zero planning, I decided that, okay, this is it, and I will leave the corporate world. And I was doing pretty well in my corporate life. But, it was one of those moments in life where I had to cross over without thinking. And I did that. And I was kind of clueless for about a year. But I had an idea. I had an idea that, now that I have decided that I'm going to switch over to something which is non-corporate, let it be a white canvas and let it be an absolutely open space. Let's see what comes my way. And that 1.5 year, when I was not really focused on planning or starting something or, like looking for another job, lots of things happened. Pretty much, very, very serendipitously. So I had been associated with an Australian gentleman, Russell Collins, who is an innovator and a product designer for quite some time now. And my association was purely because of the work that he was doing in bits and pieces in Himalayas. And him being an Australian, trying to create, solutions for solving the real world problems. That idea I thought to be very, very attractive. So our association began with that context, and I was very interested in understanding sustainable development, very interested in understanding climate change and its repercussion. So at that point in time, I enrolled myself in an online program with Columbia University, which is one of the pioneers in theorizing the aspect of sustainability and pushing the planetary boundaries. So everything that we are currently looking at, the IPCC report, Columbia University is anyways being talking about it. And they have lots of reports and white papers that they publish very, very frequently. And once I got introduced to the idea of what it means to really, look at climate change from a perspective that it impacts us as an individual, I knew that, the shift in my life has to happen. How it is going to happen, I was not very sure, but I knew that it is going to happen. So, with Russell's experience in the Himalayan region for about 25, 30 years, he helped me see how, because he was in tourism, and he would bring Australian and Western tourists to the Himalayan region for long programs. These are not the guys who do 6 days trekking, 7 days trekking. These are people who come to the Himalayas for minimum of 6 weeks, and then sometimes they stay on for 3-4 months to really soak in the entire ethos of an Himalayan adventure, including culture, including society, including helping the local community with whom they stay. So that's how his approach towards solution development started. So, if there is a farm where they are staying and it requires the pump to be retrofitted to meet their water requirements, they would just roll up their sleeves and do it. I mean, it's only now that we see some Indians, doing this kind of groundwork. But these guys, that's how they look at things. Like, they identify, they see, okay, this is a problem, here is a blockage. They'll just immediately pick up their tools and they'll, kind of innovate and, tinker around and perhaps build a solution. So that interaction with him really helped me to look at the world in a manner, or to look at the problems in a manner that, okay, yes, there are problems, but, if there is a problem, there has to be a solution to it. We can't keep crying that there is a problem. And I think that's how we need to look at, the IPCC report in context that, yes, now the world is talking about the very little time that we have, but that doesn't mean that we have to sit and cry about it. And it now features on everybody's Instagram story, whether somebody even knows what IPCC stands for, but everybody wants to talk about it. Okay, at least we've reached that stage. But Russell was, way ahead, and he knew that innovation, he knew that application of science will find us a lot of solutions, and that's what he did with Himalayan Rocket Stove. He used a clean combustion principle called Rocket Stove technology, which is very widely, accepted as a clean combustion heating principle, and it's used for multiple purposes. He used that technology and created a stove model that could be used for domestic requirements, for primarily heating and also for cooking. And this was meant for the Himalayan communities where he was spending a lot of his time, so he could identify the problems quite clearly in terms of the wood, firewood dependency, the smoke that comes out of the domestic chimneys, which then impacts the glacier and hence the glacier melt, and hence the cascading effect of, what we are seeing right now, the glacier melt and landslides, etc., the cloudburst. These are all phenomena that are related. And also the fact that, we have to switch over from something which is traditional, non-renewable, rudimentary to cleaner way of heating and cooking. So that was a thought behind Himalayan Rocket Stove. And I was, like I said, already in a phase that some major shift was started to happen in my own thinking. Um, so when we started spending more time together, he shared the idea of Himalayan Rocket Stove with me, and he shared the process of prototype with me. And in that prototype came out a solution which was made out of clay, where the material used to demonstrate the efficiency of rocket stove technology was mud or clay that is available in general Indian backyards. So he showed me that chulha, and he asked me that, do you think that this is the concept that can help people who are using what we call as open cook fire stoves? Wood based, yes. Where you have so many times we see on the roads, even not just the tribal and remote locations, but even the migrant laborers that you see on the road would probably just put 3 bricks together and light a fire, and they cook on it. But what most of us don't know is that 70% of that fire is wasted, because it's not utilizing the entire intensity of the heat. And then, of course, the smoke is for everybody to see. So this was something which was so new to me. I didn't have a perspective. I didn't have a background. I didn't even know what indoor household air pollution means. I did not know the terminology HAP, which is household air pollution. I did not know that as per a World Health Organization report, in India, there are almost 10 lakh people, mostly women and children, who die each year because of health issues caused because of indoor pollution. The major contributor to that is a chulha. So I didn't know all these things because this was not glorified as a cancer issue or AIDS or deaths due to accident.
Yep.
Nobody was interested in this this problem that is probably kills more number of women and children than in a lot of other diseases. So it was an eye-opening aspect for me, and I said, yeah, sure. I have left my job. Let me learn how to make this chulha, and let me travel with it for some time and demonstrate this, and let's see what the people have to say. And because of my own experience in travel myself, I had access to some places where I could reach the communities.
Yep.
And since it's something that you have to build by hand, we started holding demonstrations in some of the locations, started a simple Facebook page to basically, give an idea of what we are talking about. And through that Facebook page, we started getting requests saying, please come to our village, show us how this is done. And I took the opportunity and perhaps may have traveled for almost about 16, 17 months with the concept of rocket stove based mud chulha, and got very, very good favorable response from the community because it is a zero cost solution and one has to make it with all the material that is available in the backyard. B, it is not taking away from the traditional aspects of chulha made meal, which is quite central to a community's cultural identity. So I don't think we can displace it that easily and say that isko hata ke aap gas lagwa lijiye. So it's not that simple an argument. It involves a journey that any solution provider has to undertake with its set of beneficiaries. So luckily for me, while I was doing all this demonstration field work, and our solutions started getting recognized, and a lot of people started contacting me for this, I got an opportunity to do a very big program, which was funded by a pharma company. And I didn't have Smokeless Cookstove Foundation at that time. It was just a concept, a project that I was, just experimenting with. But because this organization needed a structure and, they needed a formal establishment of an organization, I went ahead and set up Smokeless Cookstove Foundation because I needed to be registered as an entity. So that was the beginning of Smokeless Cookstove Foundation. And in December, it'll finish 4 years of operations as such.
Congratulations.
But thank you. But to be honest, the work that we did in the first 2.5 years was phenomenal. And, like I mentioned before, COVID has very badly impacted our community outreach because, um, and there are multiple reasons for it. We can't access the community as freely as we could. And for us to be able to deliver what we are trying to, we need to spend a lot of time with the communities, staying with them, hand-holding them through the learning process, then further hand-holding them through the sustainable development process, then the whole aspect of monitoring and evaluating the change that they see. That's why data is so critical in the work that we try to do. That all has been impacted. Second is that the community themselves have been so badly impacted by maybe not COVID directly, but the loss of livelihood that comes with COVID. So, a lot of our communities where we have done work have lost their opportunity to earn income. They haven't been able to migrate to the locations that they would to earn their livelihood. Thirdly, the funding. Because ours is a not-for-profit space, we are obviously dependent on donors and funders. And all of that kind of dried up because most of the funding went to COVID.
Yep.
So these were broad reasons why I had to pause the work that we are doing. But the foundation is very much strong because I kind of utilize that time to capacitate my own understanding of clean cooking and its landscape in India. So we did some research, third-party research. We published some, reports to understand certain aspects of clean cooking and where the obstacles lie. I got an opportunity to become a cohort member of Clean Cooking Alliance, which is probably the first alliance which has women in clean cooking from Asia and Africa who are being mentored by, women in clean energy. So me, along with two other representatives from India, are part of that cohort. And there are women from Nepal, from Bangladesh, from Vietnam, and also a lot of representatives from Africa, where clean cooking is, I think, they've been able to do more work, more substantial work in Africa region. So that's about my foundation. But also parallelly is the journey of Himalayan Rocket Stove, which I became a part of because of my association with Russell. So he founded the company, but I am one of the founding members, and I still continue to be one of the founding members of that organization, which is a social enterprise, which is a for-profit social enterprise based out of Himachal Pradesh. And we are committed to provide the Himalayan rocket stoves to the Himalayan community in India, Nepal, and Bhutan right now. And my work in that space is only getting amped. So that's an interesting journey where social enterprise kind of took off due to COVID, where a lot of investment opportunities opened up in the climate impact space, as opposed to a not-for-profit structure where the funding sort of dried up. In a for-profit scenario where you're showing value right down to the user, there are a lot more opportunities that have opened up. So Himalayan Rocket Stove got incubated by Social Alpha in that period, which is backed by Tata Trust. So we have some brilliant names working with us to capacitate the organization, to mentor us, to be able to expand our reach and also help us innovate on new products. So the Cookstove that I mentioned to you is one of the prototypes that has emerged from our experience with the heating stove. And now it gives us an opportunity to, look at a pan-India market, because Cookstove market is a much bigger market than a heating stove market. So essentially, my work with Himalayan Rocket Stove is to develop these kind of opportunities. I got an opportunity to anchor a very, very interesting project where we were able to offer our stoves at a subsidized rate to about 500 low-income families. And the subsidy was from one of the big foundations who's investing in clean energy. And they found our solution to be a suitable solution. And given at a price point that works with the low-income community, the uptake has been phenomenal. So that allowed Himalayan Rocket Stove to expand its user base and move the segments in terms of, from an existing customer segment of mid to upper income families who we generally cater to. We got an opportunity to bring our stores to low income families. So low income families,
That's
some
nice.
of them don't even have gas in their house. They are still
Mhm.
dependent on traditional chulhas for their heating and cooking purposes. This is rural Uttarakhand. This is remote Ladakh. This is remote Himachal Pradesh, not the Shimla Manali market, which are matured heating markets.
Yep.
So Himalayan Rocket Stove now is on the path to look at interesting pieces like end user finance, uh, you know, uh,
Very interesting.
subsidy based models, pay as you go models. So yeah, so my work is in identifying such opportunities. I'm having really interesting conversations with organizations who are in this space. They haven't looked at Himalayan region. They haven't looked at cooking and heating solutions, but because we have been able to demonstrate a scale through
Yep.
our distribution model. Now there are organizations who are quite interested to have these conversations with us, and I'm hoping that at some point in time, I take the learning from the social enterprises and I use it for our work in the NGO space,
Sure.
because the core objective remains the same. It's just that the operational efficiencies of two structures are quite different. So, yeah.
There's a
Yes.
lot going on, and it's fun and interesting. And it's also a humbling experience, like leaving a corporate job to get here. And I'll double click on that. But there are a few things that you mentioned, Nitisha, and it's kind of piqued my interest, and I would love to kind of double click on them further. First is you mentioned about the you getting introduced to this entire concept of cooking at home and how that is causing serious illness or deaths in India. But your experience working with Russell and that entire aspect of the Jugaad mindset or the Jugaad 101, which I believe
Yeah.
is happening in Himalaya. Uh, you know, learning from there, and I've used that word Jugaad, but what has that experience working with Russell or Himalaya, being in Himalayas, being in that community, and it's not just that, taking that, and you did, and before we started recording, you mentioned you were in a space in Pune, in India, where you were working with a underprivileged community to share your perspective of smokeless cooking. How is that initial experience working with Russell and Himalaya now being able to transform your thinking as you move forward?
Yeah, actually, this mindset of, okay, if there is a problem, we need to find a solution and we will find a solution. That is very much that is a context of relationship that I share with Russell. And I think initially I used to be very, because he comes from a mindset of an innovation and a product designer, and I'm not from that background. I'm the
Mhm.
marketing person who will pick up opportunities and develop contacts, network, talk to my
Mhm.
earlier people, see who I can pull in this conversation, figure out avenues for collaboration and stuff like that. So I used to think that that's what is how the collaboration is going to function. But the last 2 years have changed a whole lot of things, whole lot of dynamics. Russell's not been here. He's been in Australia. He hasn't been able to come to India. And him being more of a product designer, the company now has kind of taken a life of its own. We
Yep.
have a team that works fairly independently, except for some key major decisions, and that's how it needs to be, because see, he started something, and he started something with the context of very clearly understanding the problem and then developing a solution. Now we got to take it to the next level, because
Yep.
it's not fair on him to leave what his life in Australia and like just completely just take on this mandate. It's for us because he's already set the platform. And I think that is why my work has also taken a lot of its own, I'm fairly independent of my work in both the context, even with Himalayan Rocket Stove and the conversations that I'm having with rural banks or organizations who are into social impact investment, etc. This is very much on my own. And then once it gets to a level where we want to take a decision as a company, that's when Russell steps in. And also, I think the problem itself has evolved a lot in the last 2 years. And only whoever is on ground and only whoever is amongst the community can genuinely sense the shift that needs to happen. So, if we were operating in the second or the third gear, we have to go into top gear speed now because, you spoke about the IPCC report at the beginning of our conversation, and that is what needs to drive, the growth of the company. So it started off as a very unorganized, feel good, I'm doing something super crazy. So many people thought that this is a phase. She's going to come back to her job, her cabin in, a big organization, her big car, or all of those things, heel sandals. I had a lot of people doubt the fact that, how long am I going to stick on? And I myself used to think, this is a crazy hippie space I have got myself into, traveling across the country with my backpack and everything. And it stayed like that for some time. But I realized that this is not the way to approach what I'm trying to do. I have to get organized. I have to get corporatized. I have to bring back my experience of, working as I would as a marketing manager or somebody who's handling big launches, etc. I have to bring back all of that, a very deadline oriented way of working in what we are doing. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Otherwise, if you are going to be in this laid back attitude, ठीक है, कोई investor आ गया तो बात कर लेंगे या कोई funding मिल गई तो कर लेंगे, that is not going to work. And I have kind of realized it, acknowledged it, and embraced it in the last 2 years. So pandemic that way has been a game changer in my own thinking, and the point being that if I don't do this, if I don't do it the way it needs to be done, then I may as well go back to, the corporate life that I was leading. But if I have to do this, it has to be done in a manner that I treat this as a very, very serious job. It is crucial that we set ourselves a target and chase it, like how a sales target has to be chased. Because if we are saying we need to have, we need to sell 3,000 stoves in a year, that means we are going to affect the lives of those 3,000 users, new users. So impact is ingrained in what we do. And the sooner we, start loving the numbers and chasing them, the better it's going to be for us and the entire sector. So that shift has happened for me. And I think that shift has happened because, Russell's not been around. And he's doing his own product development in Australia, mostly.
Very interesting. No, Nitisha, you bring out a very good point and a very big learning, at least, that many of us take a leap of faith in alternative careers or careers or new jobs, right? This happens with many of us. You've been in the corporate space. And we always, let's say if we've been in a job for a long time, in a company, for example, or in a career, we want to try a new job or a new career, we always have this fallback mentality. If nothing happens here, I can still go back to that company or I can still go back to that career because I can always say that I dabbled in something new, right? But what you rightly mentioned that, if you've taken that decision, then go all in it. If there is no passion, if there's nothing, if you're just doing it for the heck of it, then declare it. You can't be half here or half there. And I've seen many people failing, like what you just said. Many people have failed and they repent. And repenting is both ways. One, they couldn't be successful, or they left their current career to move into an alternative career. They left their current company to move into another company and then they came back. But they waste those years. It either comes across as a waste or they were not successful, which is a bad thing. And what you've just highlighted, it's such a great learning. But building on what you've just said, Nitisha, if I have to dial you back, let's say in your teens or when you were a young child, was this really you wanted to do? Like, I know you had your career set in corporate, in marketing and sales, but is this what you really wanted to do?
So neither did I ever have my career set in marketing, sales, or anything like that. Nor did
Okay.
I have any perspective of what I'm doing right now. I was a free flowing creative soul till my early 20s.
Okay.
And the one thing that worked well for me is that I was good with academics,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved the concept of studying under no pressure. So that helped me. But, like how some people are so sure what they want to do and what field they want to pursue, and hence what acads they want to approach. I had no such clarity. I just uh, went with what I felt good to me at that moment. Obviously, took some good decisions, some crazy decisions. I didn't have that clarity, and I didn't have that clarity for quite some time in my life. Even when I was in my marketing career, I think things happened to me with stroke of luck, and the fact that I was, always a dependable person,
Okay.
both in terms of academics as well as in terms of responsibilities. So hence things happened for me. My first job was with low lintas,
Yep.
nothing less. I was picked up from the college and stayed on with them. I adore my first boss, and how he treated me. And that continued, like subsequent jobs that I took up. To be honest, I didn't have to go through that phase where, I was um, didn't have a good job or had to compromise or struggle.
Mhm.
It just happened on its own. I think I was very lucky that everybody who I worked with placed a lot of faith in me, and I know that today I can call any single of my ex bosses, and I'm still in touch with, I think, almost all of them on a regular basis. So, but somewhere in my heart, I knew that this is not what I'm going to do. Eventually, this is a interim phase of my
Mm.
life. Um, I did very well. I excelled in my jobs, but there was something that was unfulfilled, and it's got to do with the restlessness that I have always felt as an individual, even as a kid. It was just the curiosity, the restlessness of mm, dabbling into something that I'm not aware of, pushing my boundaries, um,
Mm.
just completely take a 360-degree turn at the most unexpected moments of my life. So that's a pattern that has kind of led me here. Uh, so no great planning as far as career is concerned. No great uh, input into what I'm doing right now. But now I feel sure that this is what I want to push forward and really, really create opportunities for large scale impact. And I think I have to give credit to my 18, 20 years in hardcore organizations like Marico, Volkswagen,
Mhm.
where you had to be excellent in your job to
Yep.
shine. And I feel, unfortunately, that's lacking in the development space. And I, for one, also became lazy, and I it
Yep.
was like, okay, theek hai, it's like a beautiful place. You're doing some work for 2-3 hours, but the
Yep.
rest of the time you're chilling, exploring, and all of that. And it sounds so good when you tell somebody that this is what you're doing, and then a lot of people would say, oh, we envy your life, you're always moving and this and that. I'm no longer in that space where I want to just feel good by doing 10-15% of the work. I think it has to be to the utmost capability, as if I'm chasing, life and death. So I haven't felt more sure about what I want to do than what I feel right now.
Building on what you've just said, do you have any mentors whom you look up to as you pass through this journey, the new journey?
That's an empty space, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I don't have, I think mentors for me is a slightly overrated word. But I learn from a lot of people in my life, and various aspects of their personalities, both personal and professional. And for me, I learning comes from somebody who is able to present himself or herself as a balanced person. I mean, um, by no definition, I'm a superhero, and so
Yeah.
I hate the terms when people say, "Oh, I'm a super mom," like I'm a super dad, or and CEO. Like, so I don't
Yep.
somehow subscribe to that theory. I think the ability to face problems in your day-to-day life, big or small. So the ability to face that and then show up the next day, for me, is the most attractive quality in a person. And that necessarily doesn't have to be in a CEO of a company, or somebody who's really innovated and created the most magical solution. I even see that in my house help, that ability to show up, that ability to stick to a time discipline, that ability to do what you're supposed to do against all odds, even if it's raining, or even if it's corona, or even if it's the child in their house is sick. I find that admirable.
Yeah.
And I find that quality in my daughter, who will diligently get up in the morning and log in and attend her school and do whatever else she has to do. That's admirable. So many times as adults, we kind of have doubts, and we say, oh, aaj to man nahi kar raha hai, and all of that kind of a stuff. And okay, yes, we are privileged and we may have a choice and say, okay, today I'm not going to do. But there are so many people who don't have that choice, and they
Yep.
have to show up. So for me, that's the most admirable quality. And I see, and I kind of want to have such people around in my environment. I also like humility as a quality, and some of my professional associates have been my let's say shining light in that aspect, where you may be the most popular person on social media, but if you're not humble, then
Yep.
it doesn't cut ice with me. And then I can be extremely prude and chuck you out of my life. It doesn't take me too long to make that decision. But on the other side, I think I'm a little bit old school in that aspect, where I do like discipline. I do like a professional approach towards your life, as well as your towards your work. I do like the fact that people who are committed from day one. I like that. And I think that for me works, because then you're at that phase where things are not going well. Then those are the qualities that help you sail through. So I am yet to come across people like that in my current work. Ankit is one guy who, like I said, that I kind of, I want to fall back on. And sometimes when I'm confused, I pick up the phone on him and I speak with him, and he tells me what's going on at Access Life. And I look at what these guys are doing, and it helps me come back to my path. There are a couple of other such people whose consistency is what I just, like look at. That could be ho jaye, but these guys are there. So there are people like that in my environment. I want to keep them in my environment. But I don't think I would ever have a mentor who's going to be able to give me that, hold my hand and in totality. I'm not sure if I will ever have that space, or I will give that space to anybody, because a mentor is also fallible.
Yeah. No, you're bang
So
on. And if you're looking for somebody to be too perfect, then that person is not a human,
yeah.
unfortunately. for all of
Yeah.
us. And you're bang on that, we need different aspects, different aspirations, different learnings. And there are people around us who can give us more of that than try to find somebody to do that for you. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
but, there's one thing which has been going in my mind, which I would love to ask. You mentioned about your daughter, and it's not just her, but I'm sure your family around you. You had a very well established corporate job, and then you decide, okay, in your own words, going to be a hippie, going to travel to the mountains, to roadsides, and work with communities. And these are communities. Some people in a so-called professional setup would say they are dangerous, but they are not actually in real world. They are more humble, more welcoming than anybody else. How did the family support you in this last 4 years? Because I'm sure that shift, that change would have been a significant one. And without family support, it would have not been possible.
So I have a very interesting family structure. I'm a single mother
Okay. Okay.
to a daughter who I adopted when she was 4 months old.
Wow.
And I stay with my mum because I lost my dad quite some time ago, and I have a dog. So we are
Okay.
four of us. And like I said, that, my personality as somebody who would not follow norm and stereotype
Mhm.
from the very
Okay.
beginning was something that helped me in this transition
Very
phase.
interesting.
So my mom was more or less prepared for any changes, but it was not easy for her. She uh, would worry a lot and would
Mhm.
be would think that she's anyways changing what she wants to do, and she's anyways struggling, and then I don't think she was ever scared about the safety aspect of it. She was more scared about my health and my food and all of those things.
Okay.
So but the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing right now, she's extremely proud, and I think she is one of my biggest supporters in terms of because this the work that we are doing appeals to everyone, and out
Yeah.
comes the stories. हमारी नानी चूल्हा इस्तेमाल करती थी, हमारी दादी हमारे घर में अभी भी ये चूल्हा है. Every time I meet somebody new and talk about
Hmm.
the work that we are doing, those stories come out and it hits a
Yeah.
chord, because we are so connected as a community with these things. We are
Hmm.
it brings us back to our roots, and I think she's extremely proud of that fact. And of course she would hold fort at home and take care of my daughter. And my initial years, my daughter was with me when I was traveling, and
Oh,
she used
wow.
to, yeah. She used to come with me to the mountains for our chula making workshops. She was there playing in the mud, doing things. Very much a part of my journey. I think she
Nice.
can make a smokeless chula by herself. But the last 3-4 years, she's also grown up. And then, of course, the COVID and everything, there's been a break. Now she has more things that she's wanting to pursue on her own. But she was with me in Ladakh. So I think and I would not have it any other way. Like, I think I'm very stubborn. So if I would have sensed some kind of, not the support that was coming my way, I would do things to make sure that things would
Mhm.
happen. I have no qualms in pulling my daughter out of school and, making her travel with me if I have to.
Yeah.
So I'm not one of those people who would use the family situation as an excuse to not do what I'm supposed to do. And I think that confidence comes from the fact that our parents have given us the kind of education and the kind of exposure. So I just hate it when women use their family situation as an excuse, because if you are sure of what you want to do,
Yeah.
and if you have a path ahead of you, I don't think anybody is not going to support. Yes, it might be not easy for everyone to support, or our parents to support all our endeavors. But once they start seeing that what you're doing actually is true to your It's a true expression of what your passion is, or even your job, even your job, even your corporate job. If you're true to what you're doing, if you're honest about it, if you're diligent about it, I don't think it's going to be that difficult to pull in the family support. And if it is difficult, I think we need to find a way to overcome that difficulty. But to cling on to that, I don't get support from my in-laws, or I don't get support, blah, blah, blah. Where do I keep my daughter? At least for me, it's an excuse. I may sound a little, arrogant over here, but I have built it that way. So if I can, then anybody can. So.
No, you're bang on. As you rightly said, excuses are for losers largely, whether it is men or women, both.
Yes.
It's easier to. These situations, these circumstances are created by human beings. It's not created by anybody else. It's self-driven.
You have to work a little extra hard. That's it.
Yeah, you have to, and it's everybody, right? They have to work hard to achieve something. You can't. It's not your. All of us are not born with a silver spoon, and even people who are born with silver spoon, they also have to work hard. It's not that it's just it's given to them. Nitisha, I know you are super busy with what you're doing currently, but I just, on a parting thought, you've shared a lot of perspectives from your own career. But for people who are either struggling, stuck, or thinking about doing something to give back to the society, to the community, or to the world as a whole, like what you are focused on, what would your advice be to them?
I think, first of all, we should get off this notion that we are giving back. I don't think it is true. So we should just kind of step down from the pedestal. Second is that, you have to view it as a problem, and the problem has a solution mindset. And if you feel that this is the problem that you want to work towards, and you have a relevant solution that is going to help either reduce the problem or overcome it, then you go for it, without any alternatives. So first view would be to not hold yourself in the glory that you're doing something over and above your capability or your potential by giving something. It's not that. Because if you approach the sector or the space with that mindset, it's very short-lived. And sooner or later, you're just going to get over that, and the glory will die, and, it's not sustainable. The other thing is that, now this space has a lot of opportunity. It's getting organized. There's a lot of financial support available if you really want to take this up as a career. But I would say that equip yourself with the right kind of information, equip yourself with the right kind of education if required in the field that you want to foray, because now it's possible, now it's available. There are so many programs that even mid-career individuals who want to switch over like me, it's available. And there are some pioneering institutes in India and abroad who offer that. Maybe it might be expensive. So there are other options as well. And also, I think it's important to not let go of what you come with completely, because you need to carry a bit of your personality, a bit of your experience, a bit of your connections, a bit of your passion. I mean, passion might be there, but you'll have to bring some of your earlier experiences into the space that you want to dabble in, because you can't just cut the umbilical cord and say that, मैं पहले करती थी, अब मैं ये कर रही हूँ. I don't, again, that is short-lived, because that's something that I can say that with my personal experience, thinking that, now I don't want to do anything with anybody who's in the automotive sector or retail or FMCG or marketing or advertising. No, I mean, it's a journey. And, when you look back, you realize that at the end of the day, there are a lot of connections.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the dots meet, and that line could be from your previous experience. That line could be from your previous connection. And if you manifest it right, it is going to work for you. So we need, I can tell you from the clean energy sector perspective, it's a dynamic, evolving sector. It is as lucrative and as attractive as, a banking job or other regular sales and marketing. And sky is the limit. And having said that, it's a desperate need. to have brilliant minds, to have passionate people who come with a very, very methodical approach towards problem solving. I mean, I would love to have AI in the space that we are working with. Just the fact that we are able to reduce the wood consumption per day from 10 kgs to 6 kgs, the 4 kg delta change, what it means
Wow.
to the planetary health. That's where the space is. And it's only somebody who is a firm believer on data, somebody who's articulate to present that data, somebody who has a sharp business mind, somebody who's willing to look at the grassroots problem and take it to the top level. That's the space we need, not people who think they are giving back. So that's a difference.
No, on that note, you've got me down from my own pedestal today, and thank you for doing that, Nitisha. No, amazing perspective, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people, a lot of listeners listening to the show, and I'm sure they will be getting excited about the energy side of the world, and probably connect with you or reach out to you, hopefully.
Sure.
So no, thank you for taking time out. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show, and thank you for taking time out.
Thank you. I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for letting me straight shoot something that a lot of people say that I do. I don't mince words. Thank you for giving me the platform to say what I feel, and I look forward to this podcast, and I look forward to stay in touch with you.
For sure. Stay safe and be blessed.
You too. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please, you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.